Welcome back to Tying That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham. This is my good friend, Franck.
Let's go to work, man.
Let's go to work. You probably don't notice, but I got the flannel on today.
I did see that.
Yeah.
I'm a little sad though because you didn't do the Amos version. You didn't roll the sleeves up to where I could see your guns.
Well, I've been watching a lot of Yellowstone lately, and and I figured since I have a ranch that I'm one of the Yellowstone cowboys. So
I have not seen a single episode of that show. Is it good?
I love it, man. I love it because it's like a Western. You know, the landscape alone is just so beautiful. All the horses and cows and Kevin Costner. You know, I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. How are you, buddy? How you doing?
All right.
Yeah.
Tired.
Why are you tired? Because of your insomnia thing? Where you sleep like 2 hours a night?
Yeah, that and they're finishing up work on my house. So
Jesus Christ, they've been working a long time.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah,
getting toward the end. The painter is like painting the last couple of things. So
you know what's funny? When I was thinking about this episode, you know, it reminded me of this like little private joke I had myself. Whenever you talk about your house in Washington, so you know the proto-molecule cathedrals on the Illis, like I just picture I'm going to see you, I'm going to visit you, and everybody's like, you going to the Franck's house? And I'm like, yeah, the Franck Estates. And as I'm driving, you just see this dark proto-molecule mansion thing over the horizon, and you pull up, and the gates are guarded by Martian Marines. And I
wish.
And I just see you and at the very top of the tower drinking coffee with your robe blowing in the wind. And you're like, let him pass. Let him through. And I'm like, wow, Ty. Yeah, this Expanse thing's going pretty far, don't you think?
I wish I had all of that. And by the way, if I'm up there with my robe blowing around, I'm not wearing anything under it.
I'm telling you, that's the most important part of my fantasy. I didn't know if we'll keep it PG, so I didn't know if we're going all the way with that. But
I know if I'm up on top of a big tower with the wind blowing my robe around, everybody's getting a show.
What are we talking about today?
Flotsam.
Is that the name of the episode?
Is the name of the episode? Yeah, Flotsam.
I thought it was Jet Sam.
Oh, maybe it's Jet Sam.
Okay, so we're talking about Jet Sam. Season 4, episode 2. Who wrote it?
So this season, season 4, we had a little bit of turnover in the writer's room. We had a couple writers leave, and so Narain, our showrunner, brought in some new writers. We brought in a writer named Laura Marks, who had just started writing screenplays, but she'd been a playwright for a long time. And she actually, I think after our show, she went on to work on The Good Wife and some other stuff. So she's got a nice little screenwriting career going for herself. But Laura Marks was the one who wrote this episode. We also brought in another writer. Is she
related to Richard Marks?
I didn't ask. But her husband played Dumbledore, so she's related to Dumbledore. I mean, he played Dumbledore in like one of the small touring musical Harry Potters.
That'll
on
make
stage.
Clint ecstatic.
Yeah, he's such a
sorry you couldn't be here,
nerd.
Ass face. We're talking about Dumbledore.
Yeah, he would probably tell us all kinds of interesting facts about Dumbledore. And then we also brought in another writer named Denise Harkavy, who did not write this episode, but this was her first season with us too.
And Breckford Heisner directed this.
Breckenridge,
Breckenridge,
like the ski. Like the ski mountain.
Like the ski mountain, Breckenridge.
Yeah.
Breckenridge Eisner.
Because when you're super rich, you get named after mountains.
Yes, you do.
You get named after places where your parents go skiing.
You buy the mountain, and then you own that mountain. And then you call it Breckenridge.
I'm pretty sure Breckenridge has a sister named Vale.
Breckenridge was his bar mitzvah gift. That was his thing. So we're in the aftermath of the metal bees attacking. And Holden, Naomi, and Elvia Okoye, Lindy Greenwood, had a great time with her. Fantastic actress. We get really lucky with our the talent that comes on board with us. We have some good casting people involved because she's awesome. And they're going to check out the Proto-Molecule Monument, which is a.k.a. the the prototype for Ty's house in the Washington Mountains. And then Amos and Murdy, they go to investigate the crash site. So as they're investigating the crash site, Amos finds a blasting cap and sees that there's scorching on the landing pad. And so they come to the conclusion that it was an explosion. That pisses off old Murphy, so he goes to the bar, and the only bar in town where everybody's gathered, and basically is like, you either give up the people who did this or you all are going to suffer the consequences. You know, what I love is that, so Amos is there, he's with him, but he doesn't really care that much about him or what happened to his ship or anything like that. So he's a part of the ride. But once he sees there's a bar, once he sees that there's booze to be had, he ends that ride. And the guy leaves. And the guy's like, hey, your friend left. He's like, he's not my friend. And then he finds out that this is kind of a kick-ass place for Amos. He gets to sleep out in the open stars. They take bullets for booze, so he can make as much bullets as he wants. So he's basically got unlimited money. And he meets Sandra Way, who's played by the fantastic Jess Salgaro, who is a dear friend now. And I loved working with her, and we still talk from time to time. And every time we go shoot the next season, we hang out. She's awesome, and she's incredible in this role. And she's got a lot of shit going on. You know, I think there's like her and Anna. I think there's a pact. If they do anything in Canada, they have to cast her because she's in all this great stuff. And we were lucky to have her to do this thing. But Amos gets a little naughty time.
He does.
Finally, God damn it, 4 seasons. Being stuck out of space, and now he gets a little bit of naughty time.
Well, I mean, we've always implied that every time that you guys are at a port, Amos is living in a brothel. So,
but implied. I mean, come on. And then, but you know,
we're a family show. We're not porn.
You know what's funny to me is Amos. You know, he could have had a cooler orgasm face. Like after all, like, you know, he's murdered people and been through every brothel in the universe. And then I'm watching this, is like, the editor could have been a little, I'm like, I'm like, the editor could have been a little better to me. They could have picked out some cooler orgasm faces. Yeah, but he's like,
the really sad thing is, the sad thing is that was your best take. No, yeah, that was the best one.
Or the camera could not have, I mean, we could have done something to, like, but here's the thing, Amos could have an orgasm face like that. That's that's how deeply involved of an actor I am. I don't even know.
You do not control your O face.
You do not control.
It just happens. There's nothing you can do.
And I love the dynamic of that scene where she's the power one. Like, she goes, shut the fuck up. It's like slapping me and fucking putting her hand over my mouth, and I'm loving it. I mean, obviously, I'm loving it, and it's pushing me over the edge.
Well, she didn't want her boss to hear that she was fucking around.
Yeah. So we're having this great time in there. Amos is showing off his orgasm face, and then...
Well, let's not rush past this, because this is actually an interesting conversation about Amos. When we were talking to Jess and the director about Way's backstory and what kind of person she is. Jess she's a very thoughtful actor. She wanted to get more information on who Way is, why she is the way she is. So one of the things we talked about is that Amos is only sexually attracted to people that he feels like are in some way his equal, right? He doesn't like sexual power imbalances. He doesn't like that because the way he grew up, whenever there was a power imbalance in the sexual relationship, early on he was the victim of it, so he doesn't like the idea of ever making someone else the victim. And so part of what happens there, where she's like, shut up, she's putting her hand over his mouth and he's into it, is she's in that moment, she is his equal, right? She's just as tough as he is. She's just as physical as he is. That's what he likes about it, is that there's no power imbalance there. And that's what he looks for in sexual partners.
So Murphy ruins the whole thing for us by shooting that belter in the face. And so we have to hop out of our thing. And do you remember, so when we were shooting the end of episode 2, we ended where we run out of the cabin, and then it picks up on the following episode. The way that it worked out, because we shoot in blocks, And so the way that it worked out, we started shooting, and it was early fall. It was a warm night. By the time we got to the second half of the scene, it was on the other end of the next block. So then we were into winter at that point. So I thought it would make sense if I heard a gunshot and noise. And also, sometimes I'm in crazy moods, and sometimes I'm not in crazy moods. Sometimes I'm full of confidence, and sometimes I'm not. And this night I was full of confidence, and I was trying to talk Breck into and also I was drunk with freedom because we were on Amazon and we could do, all the crazy things that we wanted to do. And I said to Breck, it makes sense that if I hear the gunshot, I would just run out of the house and see what's going on. Amos isn't going to take time to put his clothes on. I should just run out naked. And Breck thought about it, and he goes, Wes, I'm doing you a favor, because by the time you get to the second half of this scene and shoot the whole other episode, it's going to be freezing out here. Right now it's warm, but you do not want to be naked in the other half of the scene. And we went back and forth, went all the way up to the producers and doing it, and they're like, Wes wants to be naked. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, I thank him so much, because when we got to the second half of the scene, it was cold, fucking cold. Yes. And to the point where I needed warming jackets on in between the scenes. And so thank you, Breck. Thank you for that.
See, now I wish we'd done it the other way, just so you could see the lack of continuity where he runs out and everything is one size, but then we cut to the next part of the scene and everything is 1/4 size because there's been significant shrinkage from the cold. Dude, what happened to Amos in the last 5 seconds?
That's when I call in the double. Call in the same double that Marky Mark used in
Boogie Nights?
Boogie Nights. Yeah.
Yeah, the rubber dong.
Yeah, the rubber dong.
When we were shooting, or I shouldn't say we, because I wasn't actually working on the show, but when I was up with George when they were shooting Game of Thrones, they had to do the rubber dong for Hodor, because Hodor gets a nude scene.
Oh, that wasn't a real dong?
No, that wasn't real. That was rubber. He was very excited to wear it, though. He thought he was going to get a lot more action because.
Well, I mean, if I was Hodor, I wouldn't want that to get out. But wait a second. So how does that work?
It's a rubber dong that they glue onto you.
No, but is it hollow? Is it hot?
Yeah.
Oh, so you just put it over?
Yeah, you put your stuff inside of it, and then it's it accentuates.
If I would have known that this existed,
I mean I'm pretty sure that's what they did for Marky Mark, right? I mean,
I thought that was just somebody I thought that was Dan Nowak or something standing in it. I didn't know that was the thing. So are you curious about what I want for Christmas?
Well, now I know.
Yeah, I mean, because I would kind of like the hollow rubber dong. You know what's funny is all of a sudden, during this podcast, you'll hear us talking about the rubber dong and what I want for Christmas. Then all of a sudden, every show, everything I do, I'm just doing full frontal from the whole time. Just walking around like Dr. Manhattan. Okay, so Naomi is not adjusting well to the atmosphere. And I know we talked a little bit about this protocol that she's doing last episode, but is this something... Is this all theoretical, or is this actually something like if astronauts have been in space too long, are these things that they have to do to acclimate back to the...
Yeah, I mean, no, we're obviously making some leaps here, some logical leaps, because nobody has ever actually grown up on another planet that had lower gravity. But when astronauts do go up for extended stays in space, some astronauts have been up on the space station for multiple months at a time. When they come back... they do have a lot of physical issues. They have their muscles have atrophied, their bones have actually lost density. There's a lot of those sorts of physical symptoms. And the astronauts, when they're up there, they have to exercise a couple hours every day to just keep that loss to a minimum. And even with a couple of hours of exercise every day, it still happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's interesting making the cardiovascular, the heart, and the blood pumping in the veins that, stronger. And it's if that's something I could do, that would be something you wouldn't do now. Like if you're a bicyclist or something where you could strengthen your heart and it's kind of like EPO in a way.
Yeah. But I mean, if your heart hasn't had to fight gravity your whole life to push your blood around, it's just going to be weaker. There's just no question. It's just going to be weaker than it would be otherwise.
Right.
So there has to be some way to build that up to handle the full gravity.
What was that movie? I'll be so impressed because I have so little information to give you. There was a movie where there was a guy that came on the planet and he grew up on it was an alien guy, and he came on this planet and he had super strength because the gravity was stronger on the other planet. It was an old 80s movie. The guy came on this planet and he had
Superman.
Thank you. Yeah. The guy had an S on his chest or something like that.
Yeah.
He was in the Fortress of Solitude that looked a lot like the Proto-Molecule Fortress and stuff like that. So Miller takes Holden back to the Proto-Molecule Cathedral, a.k.a. Ty's house in the Washington Mountains, and he needs him to do a task. And my question to you, and I think you kind of cover it within the show, but the Proto-Molecule is capable at flying planets around at its will. How is a root going to stop the whole construction of this thing that can literally take apart planets and put them back together?
Well, all of its ability to physically manipulate stuff is gone. I mean, all the little things with hands are missing. And as Miller says, there weren't roots there when the thing was built.
Couldn't they take somebody apart and make like a proto, like what they did with the arrows, like how they just melted everybody?
if they could infect somebody with protomolecule, but nobody's infected.
Why don't they infect them?
Because do you see any protomolecule laying around?
I see those metallic bees, but that's not protomolecule.
They're not made out of protomolecule.
That's a machine that the protomolecule made. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you listen? Do you think you know more about protomolecule than I do?
Yes.
Probably true. So, there was a great moment when Miller says that he hears all the voices, the dead voices on Eros screaming.
Yeah.
And that is so goddamn spooky to me. And to think about, and Thomas did a great job. And my favorite part of the whole Miller imaginary friend is when he slips out into the protomolecule puppet and slips into the humanity of Miller and the suffering that he's going through. And it's kind of like this endless purgatory where he's having to be sent on these missions of this thing. And when he talks about the voices that he hears, the dying on Eros, that's such a powerful moment. And everybody knows, that how much we love scary and horror, and that's fucking scary.
Yep.
Do you hear any voices in your head?
I wish.
So now they get the root out. Holden has a blowtorch, and he cuts it with a blowtorch. They climb out there as the door is closing and is about to, and he escapes, from that scene. We've seen these scenes many times in movies, and do you know the best time that this is ever done? And I know the right answer. I just want to know if you.
I mean, I would say that the A number one peak of that list is Indy grabbing his hat.
Goddamn right,
that smashing door.
Fucking Ty. I tell you, man.
That's as good as it gets.
That's as good as it gets. That is the best moment of that happening. And then you've seen that. I'm sure like that was taken from, some of the old school adventure movies or strips or whatever. Yeah. But it's just so when he gets betrayed and they toss him the whip and, it's great.
And speaking of which, the guy who steals his whip is Dr. Octopus, man, who just showed up in the most recent Spider-Man trailer.
Dr. Octopus. And it's so cool to see him, like to go back and see the behind the scenes, and like he was young and it was his first big part. And I mean, to work on a movie like that for your first big scene, and that whole opening sequence is as good as movie making gets.
That is a famous sequence for a reason. Mm-hmm. It is maybe some of the best 10 minutes ever put on film.
And all the way down to the Paramount logo turning into the actual mountain. And then you see, Indy from behind, and you don't really get to see him, and he's the hero. And then he turns around and steps into the light, and you see that handsome Harrison Ford jawline.
Well, you don't get to see his face until after he's whipped the dude's pistol out of his hand.
Yeah.
The guy pulls the gun on him. You hear the whip crack, the pistol goes flying, and then he steps into the light.
Right.
I mean, it's just talk about a fucking hero introduction.
You goddamn right. That
is just a hero introduction. And I love
right there. You learn everything you need to know about Indy in that opening sequence, and he doesn't really say much. Like you're on the journey with him from that point. It's not exposition or anything. It's about him displaying his courage and his intelligence and his resourcefulness and his honesty. Like like helping that guy out, and he says, "Throw me the whip," and he trusts him, and the guy takes it, and he gets betrayed. It's great. Great opening sequence.
Yep.
So now we're on to Bobby on Mars. And Bobby, I just want to give a shout out to Frankie because when Frankie first came on board with us, she was like 20, 21, right?
Yeah, she was pretty young.
And to see her maturing into this fantastic actress, she's so good in this. The work in this scene in particular, but also this season is just really, really good and nuanced and personal. And she's having a hard time. I mean, she hates her job. There was a Marine whose neck gets snapped, and she's one of the prime suspects. And so she realizes that this is how it's going to be, that they don't trust her. She was court-martialed, and she's not trusted by her government. Avasarala invites her to this event, but she has to sit at the end of the table. Nobody will talk to her. Only Avasarala's husband will talk to her. And then she feels like she was being used. And so she storms out of the thing. And Avasarala asks her a job, but she's like, I don't need you to save me. I don't need your fucking help. And then she finds out her cousin or nephew is cooking drugs. Now, is he cooking? What is that? Is he cooking drugs? It looks like Jell-O.
He is.
He is?
Yeah, he is cooking drugs. Yep.
What if they're just having a Jell-O party, like a sleepover? And she comes in there and fucks up all his childhood
She
friends.
trashes the Jell-O?
Yeah, she trashes the Jell-O. Well, what kind of drugs is that?
Cool. That's
kind of drugs I want to try.
It's drugs that he's selling to other students.
Mm-hmm.
It's like super concentrated focus drugs.
Ooh. What's wrong with that?
So
he's helping people have great lives and start good careers.
Yeah, you're just not allowed to cook it without any government oversight, apparently.
I really dug the fight scene.
Yeah.
Moving on.
No, I mean, the fight scene actually is, we've talked about this before with the stunties, is everything is like finding this middle ground, because like the stunt coordinators and the fight choreographers, they have a gigantic toolbox full of stuff that they can use, and they can do everything from like a high flying Bruce Lee style fight to like a gritty roll around on the ground and hit each other with greasy wrenches style fight. They got everything and everything in between. So the negotiation is always, what kind of fight makes sense? What makes sense for the character? What kind of technique would this person be using? And in realistic shows like ours tries to be, I don't like karate fights. I don't think karate fights look real. I don't think they make any sense. And as you know, somebody who's done mixed martial arts, in real life, if somebody breaks some karate out on you, you just kill them, right? I mean, karate doesn't work. But, they're always like, well, she could throw these side kicks, or she could do this spinning thing. Like, I'm always taking that stuff out. I'm always like, get all of that out of there. Strip the fight down to the barest essentials. And I really feel like this was a particularly successful version of that, because Bobby doesn't look like she's doing any fancy moves. She just looks like she's getting a hold of people and beating the shit out of them. So I was really happy with the fight. The other thing I was really happy about with this fight is when old Dale McLeod tries to get back into the fight, Bobby just lays her out.
Oh, yeah.
just drops her with a massive shot to the jaw.
Fight consistency is one thing that drives me crazy in movies and action movies.
Yeah.
Because let's say that you have a character that is extremely skilled and is like a Jedi, right? Who's a bad motherfucker. Well, if he's a Jedi, 90% of the altercations he's just going to dominate really quick. And what happens is when people are making movies, or they take each fight scene and they want that fight scene to be dramatic. They don't realize that it's just as satisfying for the audience to see this guy show what a badass he is. A good example is there's a movie called Hard Times with Bronson.
We've talked about Hard Times. That's peak Bronson,
we talked about
man.
it. So I love this movie.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love is, it's during the Depression, and he's a fighter, and he's fighting for money, and it's scrappy, and these guys are having hard times. I mean, it's a hard times in the 30s, and this is how he makes money. In the first fucking fight that now, just Guy Bronson, he's obviously been trained. He probably rose to the ranks, maybe even had a few professional fights, whatever, but he was so highly skilled above all these other people. In the very first fight, he shows up, and they go to fight, and he's like, wah! And just knocks this guy off his feet on his back, and he's knocked out. Then he just goes and starts collecting the money.
Yep.
Well, they stay consistent with that. All of his fights, he is the dominant alpha in the ring until they find this other guy and pay way more than they can afford, who's probably also has a professional background. And then it's a back and forth kind of fight. And so, but the whole movie is so satisfying to see how far evolved he is in this. And that's the thing, like, about the later Star Wars movies. You got Jedi. Jedi Knights are supposed to be the baddest motherfuckers in the galaxy, right? And they get in fights. Like, okay, so Boba Fett is, he's a badass guy, but he's not a Jedi. So they get in these fights, and every time they fight, it's always to the wire. They're barely gonna win, or they're not gonna win, and then it's like he's a goddamn Jedi. He's a fucking win. So that drives me crazy. Fight consistency.
I agree. The way that fighting and stuff is portrayed on the show is something that, like, so Narain has no interest in that. Narain's not a fighter. He hasn't been in a lot of fights. So he always just lets me do it. I'll be like, we need to make this fight look like this. And Narain will be like, go talk to Matt Berman, make the fight how you want it to be. So I wound up getting really involved in all these altercations. And that's one of the things I wanted to do, exactly what you're talking about, is get fight consistency. So at the end of last season, Bobby gets in a fight with one of the other recon Marines. That fight goes down to the wire because she's fighting somebody of an equal skill level, right? Somebody with just the same training she has, the same physical skill sets, and they beat the shit out of each other, right? I loved how that fight turned out. Now she's fighting a couple of thugs on Mars who, they're probably tough guys. They probably like shove people around and they're like enforcers for their drug dealer boss. But they're not recon Marines, right? They don't have the peak level of physical training that Bobby has had her whole career. So when they get in a fight with her, she just wrecks them. And I'm agreeing with you 100%. I like when there is a consistency. If Bobby's fighting another Marine, it's a tough fight. If she's fighting this like random drug thug, she's just going to waste him. And I like having the fight.
And it's one of the reasons that I like the Christopher Nolan Batman's better than all the Batmans is because it's somewhat grounded in the sense, instead of destroying 25 people, he beats up like 4 or 5, at a time, and does, and you see that he's human. He's just an extremely talented, well-resourced human being, and at the top of his level, and so it takes a toll on him physically. That's fun to watch. I think the first action hero that I've seen that was vulnerable, because I'm a child of the 80s, I'm thinking Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee and all those guys, but the first action hero where I saw be vulnerable, where it cost him to get hit or take fights, was Indiana Jones. And you remember when he fights the big German out next to the airplane?
And the dude is just wrecking
and there's
him.
Something about that really pulls you in. I mean, he's like, oh, pow! And Indiana Jones hits the ground, and the look on his face, like, holy shit, I've never been hit by it. Like, hit hard like that. And so he's barely fucking scrapping to kind of to stay alive. So now he's not superhuman. And you identify with him so much stronger, but it's so much more compelling to watch because now he's vulnerable. And they were talking about the big that huge stunt scene when he's like where he's like falls underneath the car and he's being drugged, the thing. They have him get shot and get hurt in that because they didn't want him to be like Superman. They wanted to show that he does get hurt in vulnerability, and the whole scene where he's like all beat up and she swings the mirror and it hits him in the face.
Yep.
And then he's too tired to give his Amos orgasm face in the thing. And he's too tired and he passes out. And you love that because you see the consequence. It's not like James Bond where you just go through this other thing and then next scene he's like back in his tuxedo and it's like he got fucking shot and got his ribs broken, and you feel that pain going forward.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate when a movie does that. Shows that I mean, there's superhero movies, right? I mean, like if Thor fights a bunch of dudes, Thor just wins. He's a god, all that. And I get that, and I'm fine with that. But like if it's regular people, even if you win a fight, like I have never been in a fight in real life that didn't cost me something. That I didn't come away with a busted lip or a bloody nose or a big bruise on my face or something. Like I've never had one that didn't cost something. And I've got a bunch of boxer's breaks in my metacarpals, because you're scrapping around, like you'll break your bones in your hand. You fall down and break your hands. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff goes wrong. And I like to see that reflected in shows that are trying for some level of realism, that it costs you something, that nobody gets away free.
When superheroes like that fight, like the Incredible Hulks when they're fighting the two Incredible Hulks when they're fighting in the city, and they're fucking they're smashed. They bow 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 smash and then run him in the ground, and then the guy gets up and he's not hurt. And those fights get boring to me after a while. They're not as interesting as something like Hard Times, where it's like, and I get like even Superman when he fought Superman 2 when he fought those three guys that were equal in power, and he had trouble with them. And so I like superhero stuff, but I like to see them being really challenged. And that solved the Superman riddle. Like if you have a Superman, where's his vulnerability? That's why they created Kryptonite. But what if you have other Supermen and he has to fight those guys? And there was 3-on-1, and they threw his ass at a Coca-Cola sign. And
well, and my favorite Marvel movie of the last decade was Thor Ragnarok. Because it was funny and it was charming and all that, but they created a villain for Thor to fight who just owned him. Every time he fought with Hela, she just wrecked him. And I like that. I like that he's like, I'm a god and I just kick ass, and she's like, I'm also a god and I'm a scarier god and I kick more ass. Yeah, that's the fun fights.
And another good example of this, don't mean to hammer this point too much, but there's a little movie called
Are you getting ready to talk about Die Hard? The fact that McClane gets his ass kicked?
Gets his ass whooped through the whole movie, and that's another refreshing thing where when you see Die Hard for the first time, it's like, oh, this guy is just a street smart New York cop who's tough and got a lot of heart and is barely hanging on by a thread.
When he tries to fight one-on-one with Carl fucks him up.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he has to fight dirty. He has to cheat with that whole chain around the neck thing. But up until that point, Carl was just wrecking him.
And he's walking around bloody, barefoot. His feet are all cut up. He has, shit all around his feet. And his hands are all bloody and busted. I mean, he is barely... That movie can make a different turn at any second, and he could lose. And you truly believe that he could lose. And that's the magic of that movie. That's what makes it special. Drummer in Ashford.
Yep.
They have figured out that Marco Inaros is behind one of the UN ships being pirated, being destroyed. And there's a cool scene where you see like 180 bodies just fly into the ring. And they're trying to figure out who it is, but ultimately they find out it's Marco Inaros. And so they have to, they got to check in with Fred, and he's got to check in with Anderson Dawes, and they're going to go after Marco Inaros.
Yeah, and one thing that people have asked me about is it a coincidence that all those bodies wind up going through the ring? Of course it's not a coincidence. Marco, when he spaced those people, of course he deliberately launched them at the ring. He's making a political statement there.
What did he do with the ship? Did he steal anything? Did he take over the ship?
Yeah, we will see what happens to that ship later in this season. That ship is actually used as part of an attack on Earth.
So did he just take all of those people on the ship and space them? All wow.
Yeah, put himself on a direct course for the ring. Yeah. Spaced all of the people on the ship so that eventually they would wind up at the ring, flying through the ring, because that's a political statement at that point. It's like, oh, you're willing to go through the ring and abandon us here? Well, I'm going to send you through the ring. I'm just going to do it without a spaceship.
I mean, I didn't want to do it this episode. I wanted to take a break, but how you know what that is?
What is that?
Cold-blooded.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cold-blooded.
Sorry, guys. I didn't want to do it, but Marco Inaros is cold-blooded.
Well, I didn't bring my jar of water, so nobody's getting drunk off of me drinking my jar of water. So you got to give them some cold-bloodeds so they can have some drinks, man. They're probably thirsty now.
Dude, our Patreon pals are bad motherfuckers because I really enjoy this top 5 list that they picked out, and they picked out a nice pool too. Joseph, whose idea was it that one?
Hold on, we're not done with the episode because
I'm done.
We talked about
fuck it. I'm done.
We talked about Holden.
I don't give a fuck about the space. All right, go ahead.
We talked about Holden pulling out that root and barely making it out on time. But what we didn't talk about is the aftermath of that.
Oh yeah.
So Holden pulls that root and he barely makes it out of the big alien tower in time, but he turned something on. And you hear that sound like a huge dynamo cycling up.
And that's the thing with Holden. He can't help but turn it on.
Oh, no.
You know what I'm saying? He can't help but turn something on every time you're around, especially with the shirt off scene.
If he sees a button, he's got to press it.
Yeah, if he sees a button, he's got to press it. And that's another goddamn thing. I know Miller's got him out of trouble a bunch, but still, Miller told him to put his hand on the Total Recall button, and then they opened the gate. And I mean, there's a lot of shit. Like, I mean, wouldn't you, like, how do you make that decision? Like, do I want this protomocule thing to work? Do I like that there's a root here keeping it stuck because they just sent metallic bees after me? So am I going to listen to Miller?
Well, Holden is hoping to get some answers on, is the protomolecule still a threat? Does humanity have to worry about going through these gates? And Miller is promising him those answers. Miller's saying, I'm going to do my investigation. I'm going to share the information I get with you. We'll both get the answers we're looking for. Holden is believing that. He's bought into that. And as it turns out, the fact that he has bought into that he is going along with Miller's program here actually winds up being really important for humanity later. So, but yeah, I understand the skepticism of like, this guy doesn't always tell you to do things that are good for you. And Naomi says that exact thing. She's like, last time you did something for this guy, it put you in a coma. You know, like maybe don't do what he says. Naomi, the voice of reason there. Because
he doesn't and almost crushes him like Indiana Jones. And then they release this massive lightning that's going forward. But we'll go into more what it is, right? When next episode.
Yeah.
Did you want to comment on anything about it?
You know, we've activated something. Lightning is traveling across the planet toward the settlement. And that sets up our next episode. Got to end with a bang, right?
With a lightning bang.
That's right.
So, as I was saying before Ty so rudely interrupted me to get back to the Expanse, I want to thank our Ty and That Guy family. I want to thank the Patreon guys. So we would like to give a shout out to our friend, Patreon member, Ty and That Guy, number 5.5, Gerald Huff. Thank you for this topic. This is a lot of fun. Now, we got to narrow it down a little bit. So his topic was most unique alien species in film, and I thought that was a fun one. And you guys, the Patreon guys, got to come up with the list, and so we're going to use your list. There was a few in there that I'm adding to it, and I'm sure there's a few that Ty is going to add to it. It also is interesting to narrow down because, like, how do you narrow this down, Ty? Do you do the most, like, aliens that we think are the most badass, scary, funny, or do we just find like
I mean, if we're talking unique,
mm-hmm.
then things that you don't see a lot, like most 99% of aliens on Star Trek are just people with bumpy foreheads. That's not that unique, right?
Yeah.
I think uniqueness is the interesting part of that. I mean, for example, I just mentioned Star Trek. Most aliens are bumpy heads, but in the original series, they had a couple episodes where they had some truly unique aliens. They had the rock monster who was like digging tunnels on one of the mining planets, and it just looked like a big animated lump of rock that could excrete acid, so it could burn right through rock walls. That was a pretty unique alien. I mean, it didn't look like a person.
Well, the Borg are humanoids. They look human, but the whole premise of them is really interesting. How they and the Queen of the Borgs, they're an interesting alien race.
Yeah.
So here's the pool. The Day the Earth Stood Still, the Gort, Arrival.
Well, it's a robot. It's not an alien.
Well, it's not from the planet.
That's true, but it's not an alien species.
The Aliens in Arrival.
Yeah, I agree
Host,
with that one.
The Thing, which is really fucking interesting alien because it can kind of take any form.
Yeah.
It's more, and it's kind of scary because it's kind of like a bacteria, something that you could breathe in. Is that correct?
The Thing? I don't know that we ever saw anybody get infected by breathing it, but you could definitely get infected by being touched.
Star Wars, Yoda, Ewoks.
All right, find whoever said Ewoks and just smack them.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Groot, the Xenomorph and Aliens, Predator, E.T. E.T. is a really interesting alien.
E.T. was very unique. Yeah, when it came out, I'd never seen anything like that before.
Did you ever see Life, Calvin, the alien in Life? That was an interesting alien. Oh, did you ever see? Well, I don't know if the movie's called Sputnik, but the alien in the movie is called Sputnik. It's a Russian movie. Did you ever see this movie? Really good.
I watched part of it. I got about 15 minutes into it and I turned it off. So maybe it got better.
The alien in Dreamcatcher.
The ass weasel.
Yeah, yeah. Where he's on the. That was so disgusting. We always, we tell that story, or do you remember Thomas Jane told that story when Morgan Freeman when the movie wrapped? He goes, "Does anybody know what the hell that movie was about?" After they wrapped, The Abyss. That's a cool ass alien. Ender's Game, Slither, Attack the Block, Enemy Mine, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That's kind of cool. I heard they were going to remake that movie. My buddy Brett was trying to get a part of that. Contact. The Hidden, War of the Worlds. I don't think they're very unique. Mars Attacks, District 9, The Prawns.
Yeah.
Venom, Annihilation, Edge of Tomorrow, The Fifth Element. It. That's interesting. Is the thing in It, is that a alien?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Where did you get that from?
Well, it's in the book, but it's also in the recent 2 movies. They talk about, there's like that ancient carving of the thing falling from the sky, and then the monster coming out. Yeah,
right. I forgot about that. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. I mean, what takes it? That or the Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
I'm going to go ahead and give it to It.
Me too. Yeah. Lilo and Stitch.
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at this. Little Shop of Horrors.
Yep.
Suddenly Seymour. I love Little Shop of Horrors. I love Little Shop of Horrors. That was on the HBO rotation in the 80s, and so I caught that quite a few times. And Rick Moranis. Great.
Steve Martin, man.
Steve Martin. Men in Black. Well, there's a lot of aliens in Men in Black.
There's a lot of aliens in Men in Black. Yeah.
Stargate. Ty is not a fan. That was in his masturbation period. He didn't watch TV for a decade.
No, I've seen the movie Stargate though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Solaris, Starship Troopers. There's a lot of aliens in that too, right?
Oh well, Starship Troopers just has those bugs.
Yeah, but they're different breeds of bugs. Guyver, what's that?
It's a Japanese movie about a guy in a robo suit.
Is it good?
It has its fans.
Is it an alien?
I don't remember. I think the suit might be an alien, but I don't remember much about it. I saw it like 30 years ago.
Star Trek, Vulcans, the Borg, Klingons.
See, bumpy-headed aliens, man. Bumpy-headed humans is not a good alien. I'm sorry.
I think the Borg, though, is interesting. That's interesting to me. Signs, Cloverfield, Pitch Black, Independence Day.
So I am going to broadly remove things because talking about unique aliens, huge chunks of this list are bugs, right?
Yeah.
That whenever somebody's trying to come up with what an alien looks like and they can't think of anything, they just make it a bug.
Oh my god.
Everything's a fucking bug. My issue with a lot of this is, so you got the Star Trek aliens and other movies and other shows like that, which is just bumpy-headed humans, right? You've got the bug aliens. There's like a million different variations of the bug alien. For me, unique aliens is something that isn't just those default. I think when you don't know what to make, you make a bug if you're making aliens. And so there's a million different versions of the bug. I think for me, what is the most unique version of the bug alien? What is the one that's the most interesting? Would you consider the xenomorph to be a bug?
No.
He always seemed more like a lizard to me.
Yeah.
Than a bug. Yeah.
What makes it unique is he seems more like an original creation.
Yeah.
Like he has, the Geiger, the guy that created that look and that feel.
Yeah.
It doesn't really. It's not one thing has really shaped that. It comes from its own original place, which I think really puts that on the list.
And Giger's thing was biomechanical, making life forms that looked like they were machines.
Right.
And that's part of what made the alien, the xenomorph, so unique, was that biomechanical look to it. So I think, aliens definitely going to go right up at the top of my list. I also think that the aliens in Arrival are incredibly unique. I mean, they're unique looking. I guess you could say that they kind of look like squids or octopuses or whatever because they have the tentacles. But the design of the alien and the design of what it's trying to tell humans and what its culture is and what it means for humanity by being there, I think is all very unique stuff. Ted Chiang is incredibly creative, and I think that stuff would be at the top of my list.
I think The Thing, like if you go back to the short story, that's something that hasn't been, but before that hasn't really been seen before.
Yeah, the idea of a shape-shifting alien that can read your mind, yeah, that was pretty cool.
So this for me, just my initial thoughts, and we can talk about it. But for me, like when I look at it, I think E.T. for me is very high on the list.
E.T. was really, really unique.
Yeah, very unique, and even its vibe. You know, it was the friendliness of it, the benevolent little alien, and it was funny, comical, and interesting. It is on the list because, I mean, it's so creepy, and then to think that there's an alien that takes on the image of a clown to attract kids because it feeds off their fear. Predator, Predator again. Well, I guess it does have kind of a crabby fish kind of look, but
I think so the Predator is obviously just a guy, right? It's a guy in a suit, very human in shape, all that stuff. But I thought the design of the face, Stan Winston's design for the face, was so incredibly unique and interesting looking. Also,
its talents, its powers, like its ability to the different types of visions and the guns and the things that it used, I thought was really cool.
Yeah, a Predator I think is a pretty unique alien for the design of the head more than anything else to me. I mean, and Stan Winston was a genius, so anything he worked on was going to be great.
Right. The Xenomorph and The Thing are like my top up there.
Yeah, I think the Xenomorph and The Thing are right at the top. I think the Arrival aliens for me is up at the top. I agree with you about E.T. E.T. was very unique when it came out.
Do you think the Arrival aliens bump E.T., It, Predator, Xenomorph, or The Thing?
I think the Arrival aliens are more interesting and unique than Predator is. Predator's guy in a rubber suit. It is. I mean, it has a really interesting face, really interesting design of the head, but it is a guy in a rubber suit.
Okay, good point. So Arrival takes Predator. Did they say Alien Nation?
I didn't hear it on the list. No.
I mean, because that's the least unique out of the list. I was just curious because
I mean, but it's Alien Nation is Star Trek aliens. It's humans with bumpy foreheads.
Yeah, and then Yoda. But then the thing about Star Wars is like nobody's from Earth, so who's the alien?
Right? And there are a ton of different, really unique aliens in Star Wars. I mean, that's the genius of Star Wars was that it felt like a very richly populated galaxy, and humans were not automatically the only thing there. I mean, when I remember being a little kid and watching Star Wars, and when Luke goes to the cantina on Tatooine to find Han Solo.
Yeah.
And that place was just populated with so much crazy stuff. It just blew my mind as a kid. I mean, I look at it now and it's kind of quaint because it looks like a lot of people in Halloween masks.
Yeah.
But as a kid, that place blew my mind.
It still works on me. Like when I watch it, I still enjoy it. I still enjoy seeing all the characters and how they go through the cantina.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, I guess Close Encounters, but I don't remember another benevolent alien other than E.T.
No, there's been others. There's been other benevolent species.
Before E.T.?
Yeah.
Which ones? Yeah. The Day the Earth Stood Still?
Yeah. Klaatu is a benevolent alien. He's here to help humans. And I've talked about, I can never remember the title, but I think it's called It Came from Outer Space, I think is the title, about, the aliens who crash land on Earth and they need parts to fix their ship. And so they appear to be humans, but they're actually these really weird looking aliens. Those were very benevolent aliens. The whole conflict with those aliens was because of a misunderstanding. This idea that just because something is alien, it must be evil. It's very Cold War sort of era stuff of like.
Yeah, so there is, and I take your point. There is the Cold War kind of 1950s, like The Day the Earth Stood Still, where these guys, they do come and trying to avoid war and they're a peaceful, but there's nothing like as personal and as kid targeting like E.T.
Yeah, no, E.T. was very unique, I think, when it came out, in that he wasn't just a non-violent, non-threatening alien. He was an actively friendly alien. You wanted to hang out with him. You wanted to be his friend.
And he had an innocence. The day the Earth stood still, that guy was brilliant and had all the technology and had all the and the power of Gort.
Yeah.
But this ET was like kind of shit out of luck. He landed on this island. He was looking for shit, and they left. And there was a childlike innocence and a cuteness to him.
Yeah.
And he became best friends with these kids.
Well, and he's powerful, but none of his powers work for violence.
Yeah. Yeah.
He can do some really interesting things with his sort of telekinetic powers.
And he can heal. He can heal,
but you never see him use any of those powers to defend himself, to do violence to other beings, which is a really interesting take on it.
And that movie works because as a kid, there's some genuine spooky moments in the beginning, of like this alien and not what it is. And then once then your senses are heightened. But once you get to know this alien and your guard starts to lower, then you start to fall in love with it. Then the real bad guys come online, and they come and they start, and then they realize what the real challenge is. E.T. was a very special movie, and it was one of those movies that has magic in it. And when you watch it, even to this day, Spielberg is a magic maker.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back and watch Jaws and Close Encounters and E.T. and Indiana Jones, I mean, there's something about those movies that it's even beyond the script and what's in it when they come out.
I think Spielberg is a pure filmmaker. He understands the language of film. He understands the language of cinema, I think a genetic level. So almost no matter what genre he's working in, he does an amazing version of that genre, because he just understands cinema. He understands what film is and what it does and how it affects people, and the right way to shoot things to really get the most emotional impact on his audience. I mean, the guy's a genius. When he did his Alien movie, which he did a couple of them. He did Close Encounters and he did E.T. They're brilliant versions of those genres. I mean, he's so talented.
If you go on, and we should do a whole episode on Spielberg, because he was such a powerful influence on so many people's lives, but like mine in particular, the movies and yours, the movies that he has been a part of, not only the movies that he's directed, the movies that he's produced.
Yeah.
I mean, Gremlins, Adventures in Babysitting, like all these other movies that it's crazy to think like all of your favorite movies, even if he didn't direct them, he somehow had his fingerprints on them.
Yeah, he had a hand in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because he's really struggled to get anything off the ground on the TV side. TV has not been good to Spielberg, in spite of the fact that he may be the greatest director of our century on the film side.
I wonder how hands-on he is in the TV world.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, because I know I think he was really involved in Amazing Stories, and I think that, to me, I love that show.
Yeah, but it was not a successful show.
It wasn't?
No, they canceled it after 2 seasons. It was not successful.
Wow. All right, but I want to give a special mention to Killer Clowns from Outer Space, because that is such a crazy premise.
It's so weird. That movie is so
weird. Where they come down. If those of you listening have never seen this movie, it's such a fun, crazy late night, cheesy watch. But it's basically these clowns that come and they take humans and put them in these like cotton candy pouches, and liquefy them and then drink them in these twirly straws.
Yeah. Now, if you are a person who likes to have a drink, have 3 or 4 drinks before you watch that movie. If you're a person who likes to smoke a little bud, definitely smoke a bowl before you watch that movie. Whatever your mind-altering chemical of choice is, go ahead and get that. Do a bunch of it and watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space and have a good time. A couple of little, since we're wrapping up here, I want to do a couple little housekeeping notes for the podcast, all 8 listeners. Because of a technical issue, we had an amazing interview with Sharon Hall, who is the EP of the first season of the show. Brilliant woman, brilliant producer. We had a great episode cut with her, and because of a weird technical issue, we wound up losing the whole file. So Sharon has graciously agreed to come back and re-record with us. So she's coming up pretty soon. Just wanted to let everybody know. And we are still trying to nail down a time when we can do an interview with Joanne Hansen, our brilliant costume designer, who, because of some family issues, wasn't able to record with us. So we have some stuff that we've been trying to get done so that the podcast isn't just a big sausage fest. But unfortunately, it's like the universe is fighting us. The universe is against us here. Every time we try to get something set up, I think the last time we actually successfully did this was with Lindsay, our other on-set costume person. We actually managed to get that one done, but everything since then has fallen apart. I'm not sure why.
And we're also, Ty and I love talking about these horror shorts. Ty actually introduced me to them a couple years ago, and I love watching them, and we send them back and forth. But there's this great fandom of horror shorts. These really talented directors are putting these little shorts. You can find them on YouTube of these little horror movies, and they within 3 minutes they can scare the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
And I think it's really impressive, and it's a great way to dive in and talk about storytelling. But what we want to do, and I put a list together of about 10 of Ty and I's favorite horror films or horror shorts, just to give you guys an example of what we're kind of looking for. And you can use some of that list, or you can use all that list, or whatever you want to do. But we want you guys to pick out your favorite horror shorts, and what we're going to do is find the top 5 that we like. We will let everybody know ahead of time so everybody can watch them. We will sit down and we'll have guests on, directors and writers or whatever, and talk about why these are so effective from a storytelling point of view. And then we'll pick a winner, our number one favorite one, and then we'll give a shout out to that and do something nice for that director or writer, and give a shout out to somebody and put it out there. But
I'm excited to do that. I think horror specifically lends itself to the short form, that it is possible to tell a complete scary story in a very short amount of time, in a way that other genres don't lend themselves to the short form like that. And part of what I love about short horror films, exactly what you were talking about, is the craft of it, the filmmaking of it. How to tell a story a complete story in 3 minutes. And some of my favorite ones, it's ones I've sent you, don't have any dialogue or have very little dialogue. So the storytelling isn't people expositing at each other. It's all what the camera sees and what the camera is telling you about the world you're entering and the people who are in that world. As a filmmaker myself now, having been a filmmaker for the last 7 years, I'm fascinated by that stuff. And I've learned so much about filmmaking and about storytelling from these little short horror films. And I know Wes is super into storytelling as well and filmmaking. So I really want to dig into some of these and really hack apart the filmmaking of them, the storytelling of them between the two of us. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
And I also look forward to hearing what your thoughts are and which ones are your favorites. But, well, thank you guys for hanging out. That's all we have for today.
Hey, one last thing. Joseph is going to include a link, and maybe even in the video itself, our new Expanse Season 6 trailer that just dropped today. Now, you guys will be hearing this podcast a week from now, so it'll already have been out for a week, but we're going to put that in here. Wes and I were both very excited by the new trailer, so we want to include that.
Before we go, I almost forgot. So here's our top 5 list. E.T., It, Arrival, Alien, the Xenomorphin Alien, and The Thing. So, yeah. Joseph, what was the Patreon top 5? Alien, Arrival, The Abyss, that's... Yeah. So The Abyss and District... No, so to the Patreon people who voted on this, you guys are not wrong. The Abyss and District 9 are both brilliant original aliens. So this is a good list. This list that they did is just as good as our list, I think. But I love how close we're thinking. We're only 2 off. And The Abyss could have easily, if I would have thought it, that easily could have made my top 5.
That could have easily made my top 5 as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
That's a good list. These are smart viewers.
Yeah, smart viewers.
Yeah.
All 8 of you smart little tying that guy family.
Well, smart and sexy, I would say.
Yeah, you goddamn
Very
right.
sexy.
They're sexy. They're tying that guy fans. They're tying that guy and sexy. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us. This has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you guys putting in the work and doing this. And we're going to be thinking of ideas and coming up with all these things to be able to interact and hang out and and just have fun with each other and be fans. That's why we started this. So thank you so much. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.